Hi everyone, I always had this idea that I wanted to build a really portable suitcase drum kit. I've seen lots of great ideas of how people have done it, but I never saw one that I thought which kind of had good instructions for exactly how to build it in a way that everything is going to fit inside the suitcase, which to me is the whole purpose of it, so you can travel with it easy. So this is my way. It's not the best way, it's not the only way, but it's my way that I put together my traveling portable suitcase drum kit. Step by step, have a look, see what you think. So the first thing you need is a hard-cased suitcase. I got this one for $20 off Gumtree. The key to the suitcase here is that you want it to be a decent size, and you're also going to need, you don't want one that splits across the middle at the top and opens into two halves. You need one that's got a deeper, so it splits in a third. And you'll see a little bit later on, but you need one that definitely splits 2/3 as much sort of space as you can get on one side as possible. The other thing you're going to need is a drum kit that you're going to, unfortunately, well, I won't say destroy, but you're going to change its life. So find one that somebody's selling. I found this one on Gumtree as well for about $100 with all the bits and pieces. Step by step, you're going to pull it apart, cut it down, get rid of the bits you don't need, and turn it from this into this. So the first thing we've got to do is open up the suitcase and basically gut it out. So get rid of all of the pieces inside, and then once you've cleaned it out, you're going to end up with this. And there's all the bits that have come out. And something I would say that's really important is try and be as non-destructive as possible. You want to sort of keep all the bits and pieces, because as you're putting it together, there's lots of little things in there, screws and bits and pieces you might end up needing. So don't just be hasty in your dismantling, but save everything. Next step, what we want to do is we basically need to get across to the to our bass drum. Remove the bass drum spurs, the leg parts that keep the bass drum from flying ahead, and also tom mount. Now what works really well, I've done this before, is you want to get a bass drum that has a single tom mount rather than sort of two separate tom mounts. So as you can see, the way that the toms mount on this one is ideal, because it's got the one entry point through that rather than two separate ones for the two toms. And you'll see, because we don't have a lot of real estate to work with on the drum, we want to make sure we go that metal works better. And then on our floor tom, we basically need to get in there and remove our 3 tom legs, as well as the mounting brackets for them. So there you have it. We've removed the floor tom legs and their mounts to the drum, the bass drum spurs, their mounts, and also the tom mount at the top there, keeping all the screws, making sure everything's ready to go. Now it's time to, at this point we're just going to see if we can attach this, or at this point we're going to see the best way to attach this to the suitcase, which is now the base, and for all intents and purposes our rack and everything that's going to carry and hold everything we're going to use, just about. Okay, so now what we're going to want to do is mount our tom mounts onto the drum, and this is where you'll see why it's better if it's a 2/3, 1/3 split, because if it's split right down the middle, you won't have enough room to mount the mount, no pun intended. So here with the, I think that's probably a good spot. The reason I wouldn't do it that way is because obviously we won't be able to get our fingers in to open the suitcase. We need it, so if we mount it that way, as far across as we can, leaving just a little bit of space, then we should be able to get our fingers in to open, and also to tighten. That seems to be working really well. Now, the way to measure and the way to mark is, we need to make sure that we get these holes in exactly the right spot. So here's a little trick. If you've got some ink, or an ink blotter, the key is to get a little bit of ink. As you can see, sorry, we've got a little bit of ink. We just paint it onto the spots that we want to mark, where we need to drill. Okay, and then when we take it up to our position and mark it, if this works, and it does work in rehearsal, put it down, make our mark, and lift it off. As you can see, we've got our 4 points marked, and we will know exactly where to drill. Now you can see I've drilled my 4 holes, and when you pop your mounting plate on, what you want to make sure is you want it to sit, make the holes nice and big so it sits as flush as it can. Get around here and have a look. We can see that is pretty good, and then we can attach it from the back. So there you can see I've attached the tom mount into it. Fits in beautifully, and what that does is it actually gives me a really good spot to be able to see where I need to drill the hole for the tom arm to come in. So basically I'll just draw a circle around there, and then I can drill that through as well easily now, knowing exactly where it has to fit. Okay, so there you see it drilled all the way through the hole, and if we stand it up, take a look at it, the tom arm should fit perfectly. Oh, if I loosen it, straight in and lock into place. Beautiful. So the next thing we want to do is attach or find out where we have to drill our tom legs into the drum. So again, the same trick as we did before. We position our, we want to put a little bit of ink into our spots. And it'll give us a perfect guide for where to drill in. I'd say somewhere around about, let's say, there. Okay, so you can see with our legs, our bass drum legs now attached, tom holder in, we are getting what starts to look like it's the beginning of a drum. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we need to attach basically two mounts. So we've got our floor tom legs, and I've done this once before, so I did a bit of trial and error on that one. The one that I find works is what we want to do is we want to attach one mount here, which is basically going to work as maybe a cowbell mount. Okay, so we're going to have our rack tom here, a cymbal on there in a second, and here we're going to attach a cowbell or a wood block or something like that. So using the same method and putting the ink on it, we're going to find our mark and drill our points. The other one we're going to do the inverse way is going to have two purposes. So this one's going to mount basically down here. We're going to attach it to the front here, and what this is going to do is this can actually work as an extra stabilizer if we need a stabilizer on the leg, and this is what we're going to mount our floor tom to, which we're going to cut down a little bit later on. So basically, using the same method, ink on the metal points, make a mark, drill it through, and on this one, the other way around, make a mark and drill it through. Okay, so as you can see, it's really starting to come together. There's our cowbell mount mounted in, our legs, and there is going to be our floor tom mount mounted in on this side. What I will say is that you can see that sometimes it can be, if you're kind of working up that, it can be a little bit unstable. So what I tend to do is I grab the other floor tom mount, one of these, mount it a little bit lower, and then double work this in. So that's what I'm going to do next, is I'm going to basically make the same marker. So you can see what I mean is mark the holes, drill the holes, and then you're going to attach it just like that, and it'll be a double stabilizer and work really well to hold that floor tom steady and the bass drum steady when you're kicking it. And there you go, there's the double mount in there that will hold it nice and steady. And if we have a look at it, it's just about there. So the next thing we need to do is get our two toms that we're going to use. So we're basically going to have a mounted tom and what we call a floor tom. In this case, in the interest of saving space, what I'm going to do is use the two smallest toms, which are our two original rack toms. Basically, we're going to get in there, remove the mount, because we're going to need to reposition that, and cut the toms, in essence, just a little bit deeper, just then where the lugs are. So in that one, we're going to cut to just below there. We'll remove our badge, and in this one, we're going to cut just a little bit deeper to below there. Once you've removed the head, if you come up against a nasty screw that you can't get out, I find everybody's favourite and ever reliable, a little bit of that just onto the fending screw. Sometimes is just all it needs to... Got it. There you go. So I'm not a master builder, I'm not a master craftsman or a master carpenter, so there's probably better ways to do this, but this is my simple way to hack it. You want a nice straight line to figure, well, roughly a straight line. I mean, it's not an exact science here, we are making a sort of a hack busking kit. So the line doesn't need to be meticulously, perfectly straight, but a way to kind of get a straight line to go is I find if you get a bit of tape and trusty cameraman pans down a little bit, and just find our marking point, tape it all the way around, kind of use our lugs as our guide point. We go all the way around, and that's basically our guideline to cut on, and I'll cut right down the middle of that tape line. Just one thing to watch out for, when you're cutting, if you've got a smaller drum with shallower lugs, or not quite as deep as mine, you don't want to cut too short because you're going to need to remount the actual mount as well. So as you can see, by moving it up here, if I was to say go two of the holes into those two pre-holes that I've already pre-drilled, which actually works quite nicely, that'll fit in underneath my line down the middle. So just be careful not to sell yourself too short and not leave yourself enough room to be able to mount that mount again. I also drill myself sort of a starting point where I can get my jigsaw in, so that I've got somewhere to cut to start nicely, so I don't have to destroy the rest of the shell, because we might well use that for something a little bit later on. Something I forgot to say, as I started to cut, you'll see that I had to stop because I didn't take the lugs out, so my guide couldn't get through off the jigsaw. So take out all the lugs, on the top side that you want to cut, then you've got a nice clear path that you can cut through as such. That's our, cut back up, camera person. That's our mounted tom, and then I'll just sand that down. Beautiful shape, put our head back on, our lugs back on. But before we do that, we'll just measure using our method as we did before to be able to mount our tom mount. So you can see now with our two toms attached, there's our rack tom, there's our double stabilised floor tom. We're starting to get towards looking like we actually have a kit. What we're going to want to do is mount our cymbal on here. So a little hack I found is you grab a rubber band and rub it around sort of 10 times. That's your stopper. Make that nice and tight. Hard to do with one hand. And then you'll pop your cymbal felt in. Another cymbal felt on top. And then, as a little cap, that's one of our floor tom leg rubbers to double up. Goes from this to that, and as you can see, if we it's going to hold it very nicely. It wouldn't be a busker's kit if we didn't have a top quality, absolutely superb busking style hubcap cymbal. So that's our crash, ride, splash, whatever you like. So with everything attached, as you can see with the cowbell, put our hi-hats on, also that same vintage as our crash, ride, splash. Small stool, everything into place. It's starting to look really good. The last thing you're going to see is that we're going to need to just get something in there so that we can attach successfully our bass drum pedal. So either we could just have it there and it'll work fine, or else the other thing is to just grab a bit of extra wood as such. I seem to have a liner out here. Drill that into the bottom, and you just want to give yourself something that the bass drum can basically clamp on so it stays in its position. Now the last bit before I do the grand unveiling, if you're so inclined, take one of your leftover skins, this one from the small tom that we mounted there, and drill 5 little holes into the front of the case, so that it looks like you've got a bass drum actually there. To people who are sitting at the front, they're going to see it looking like a bass drum. And as you can see with the finished job, we've got ourselves a really awesome bass drum, bass kit. Got ourselves a really awesome drum kit, perfect for busking. Bass drum sounds pretty good. The snare, well, you know, if your case is big enough for the snare, this is actually a snare that I cut down a little bit in size to make it a bit more piccolo so it'll fit inside the case beautifully. I won't teach you how to do that, I won't show you how to do that. There's plenty of other people who do it much better than I do on the video, but you can just cut down a snare, but if the snare fits perfectly, it's all good. This is the full kit. I'll give you a bit of a tour of it, and then we'll pack it into the case, and you are done. And there you can see everything packed up inside the drum. I'm going to get my trusty assistant to put the lid on. Put the lid on, trusty assistant. I'll seal it all up nice and tight. And there you have it. The full Suitcase drum kit. It's not super heavy. It's not super light. It's not super heavy. But it is portable. Grab it. Wheel it. And there you go. Any questions? Shoot me a message. Happy to answer them. Have fun building it. Good luck and happy drumming.